Over a dozen people are dead in China. Severe flooding in the country caused river overflow and a major bus accident, leading to a number of passengers to drown. More tension between Taiwan and China. Taiwan's president says the island will keep bolstering its defenses and won't be forced to bow to the communist regime. Australia's former prime minister remarks on China, but Beijing isn't pleased. It's issuing its own statement targeting the nation. Over a year into a border standoff, China and India are still in talks to cool the situation down, but their latest conversation didn't go as planned. We hear from a family Chinese police are forcing to relocate and how their struggle with the state turned what started as a housing crisis into a health crisis. And Beijing has selected a new target for its next clampdown, the private capital. The goal appears to be completely removing it from the media industry. Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Before we start with our daily news, we have a short announcement. We have our premiere at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time from Monday to Saturday on our YouTube channel and also on TV. NTD is available on many platforms, including cable TV, satellite, and over-the-air TV across the U.S. And it continues to grow. Please check out ntd.com/TV. Type in your zip code to find all the ways you can watch our show. That's ntd.com/TV. 13 are dead and 1 is missing after a bus accident in China. That's according to local media outlets. A bus carrying 55 people fell into a river on Monday in China's Hebei province. Heavy rainfall in the area, plus overflow released from nearby reservoirs, are being blamed for the accident. Online video from the scene shows passengers standing on top of the submerged bus, waiting for rescue. Many of them had been on their way to work. The accident struck on a bridge over the Hutuo River in Hebei. The river's water level had risen dramatically after near constant rainfall the past few days. By the time the bus tried to cross, the bridge was already half underwater. On top of that, the bridge does not have guardrails. Locals told Chinese media that the bridge is basically a section of standard road hovering over the river. Usually, river water passes beneath it. But with the river half submerging the road, it became difficult to see where the side of the road ended and the river began. The incident is getting a lot of attention on Chinese social media. The hashtag "a commuter bus carrying 51 people fell into the river in Hebei" has already racked up over 700,000 views on the microblogging platform Weibo. Hebei isn't the only part of China dealing with floods. In Shanxi province, reservoirs are also discharging overflow, prompted by heavy rain. At present, some 1.75 million people across nearly 80 counties and 11 cities in the province have been affected. In some regions, the flooding is so severe that entire villages had to be evacuated. A resident from one of those villages told the Epoch Times that authorities gave no prior warning before releasing water from a local reservoir. The floodwater reportedly entered the village at night, and residents weren't able to stop it. Many had no choice but to flee their homes with nothing but the clothes on their backs. Those who evacuated are now seeking shelter in neighboring villages and counties that didn't suffer flood damage. Online video shows many of those displaced are elderly citizens. A resident explained that locals have been on their own and without aid, from trying to block the floodwaters from entering the village to handling the necessary evacuation. Taiwan's president says the island will keep bolstering its defenses. She says they will ensure that nobody can force them to accept the path China has laid down, which offers neither freedom nor democracy.
Fighter jets paraded across Taiwan's skies on Sunday, marking the island's National Day. Addressing a rally outside the presidential office in Taipei, President Tsai Ing-wen continued to rebuff comments made by Chinese leader Xi Jinping, who said he wanted to see a peaceful reunification with Taiwan.
We will continue to bolster our national defense and demonstrate our determination to defend ourselves in order to ensure that nobody can force Taiwan to take the path China has laid out for us, a path that offers neither a free and democratic way of life for Taiwan.
China has long claimed Taiwan as its own territory, with the island facing growing military and political pressure to accept Beijing's rule. That includes repeated Chinese Air Force missions in Taiwan's airspace, which Tsai says has seriously affected national security and aviation safety. China's activities there have been condemned internationally. Tsai's speech comes a day after she vowed to realize China's reunification with Taiwan. Although he didn't directly mention the use of force, his comments drew an angry backlash from Taipei. Tsai said only Taiwan's people can decide the future.
We will not act rashly, but there should be absolutely no illusions that the Taiwanese people will bow to pressure.
Though Taiwan has repeatedly called for talks with Beijing, it refuses to deal with her and instead has branded her a separatist. She warned her people on Sunday, quote, "We do not have the privilege of letting down our guard."
Beijing is not pleased with Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-wen's speech. A spokesperson from China's Taiwan Affairs Office said Tsai's speech, quote, advocated Taiwan independence, incited confrontation, and distorted facts. They said Tsai's vow to maintain the status quo with China was a lie. But recently, Taiwan has come under growing military and political pressure from Beijing. Nearly 150 warplanes were flown into Taiwan's air defense identification zone over the past week, prompting Taiwan's defense minister to say tensions were at their worst in 4 decades. Back to the event on Sunday, Tsai called on the island's people to double down on some commitments. One being that Taiwan and China should not be subordinate to each other. A Taiwanese professor tells Voice of America that the commitment is equivalent to the two-state theory. It was first proposed by Taiwan's then-president in 1999, and it characterized Taiwan and China as 2 different countries. The professor added that Taiwan is standing for keeping the status quo while defending its democratic system, but that Beijing wants to change the status quo and is promoting so-called reunification. Taiwan's authorities responded to the Chinese authorities' criticism on Monday, saying it's a fact that Taiwan is not subordinate to China. The U.S. responded after Beijing's call for reunification, saying the U.S. continues to support a peaceful resolution and urged Beijing to cease its pressure campaign against Taiwan. And Australia is also getting involved in China-Taiwan relations. The Chinese Foreign Ministry lodged stern representations with Australia on Monday. Their accusation is against what Beijing deems to be inappropriate comments about Taiwan. Former Australian Prime Minister Tony Abbott visited Taiwan last week in a personal capacity. He said in a security forum that China may lash out with its economy slowing and finances creaking.
It is quite possible that Beijing could lash out disastrously quite soon.
Abbott also met with Taiwan President Tsai Ing-wen and voiced his concerns about the country's situation.
Not everyone and not everywhere is pleased at Taiwan's progress, and I do note that Taiwan is challenged on an almost daily basis by its giant neighbour.
The Chinese embassy in Canberra attacked Abbott strongly with disdain. It labeled Tony Abbott as a failed and pitiful politician, saying his comments in Taiwan exposed his anti-China features. In his speech on Friday, Abbott said it was not Australia that was beating the drums of war. He says Australia is beating the drum for freedom, for all, both in China and Taiwan. The Communist Party leader's speech on Saturday invoked a revolutionary leader, but it's just the wrong meaning. At a meeting to mark the 110th anniversary of the 1911 revolution in Beijing, Xi commemorated the exploits of the revolutionary pioneer Sun Yat-sen. Sun is the forerunner of China's democratic revolution. Over a century ago, he led an uprising to overthrow the Qing dynasty and ended thousands of years of monarchy in China. Over the weekend, in an effort to promote the so-called unification with Taiwan, Xi implied that the unification is in harmony with what Sun called the international trend, and that failing would result in suffering. But according to history textbooks taught in Chinese high schools, Sun's so-called international trend refers to the trend toward democratization. It's a completely different message from Xi's intention to take over Taiwan. Chinese netizens commented online, saying anyone who has ever been to high school in China knows he is making a fool of himself. And he has only graduated from elementary school, so he can say such important things, which shows that he really did not go to high school. Xi was born in 1953. According to his teacher, he started junior high at the age of 12 in 1965. But the sweeping Cultural Revolution broke in 1966, the next year, and China suspended all classes during that time. Now we look to tensions between China and India. The two countries are in their 17th month of a border standoff. And army commanders from both sides have just talked for the 13th time, trying to solve the stalemate. But the two countries said on Monday that the talk didn't end with a deal. The border tension started after a deadly clash last year. 20 Indian soldiers died in the conflict. Beijing says it lost 4. And the two countries have been holding talks to ease the tension. But the Wall Street Journal quotes Indian intelligence as saying Beijing kept increasing its number of troops at the border, from 15,000 to at least 50,000. And India also sent over tens of thousands of troops and military weapons to match. After the talk, both sides blamed each other, while China said the Indian side continued to insist on unreasonable and unrealistic demands. India said the tension was caused by unilateral attempts by the Chinese side to alter the status quo. One family surveillance camera seems to have caught a case of violent behavior on tape. It all started when Chinese authorities came to their home, demanding the family move out. But when they tried to refuse, the authorities got aggressive, even punching one family member in the head. NTD's Don Ma has more.
Chinese police are forcing a family in China's eastern Jiangsu province to move out of their home. And when the family tried to refuse, the authorities beat them so badly that one ended up in the hospital. Homeowner Xi Guoping told NTD on Monday that a group of unidentified people, including police, came to the family's house without warning. They explained that they wanted to talk to the family about relocating. The situation quickly escalated.
At that time, the door to our home was open, so they just came in and took a seat. We told them that it was the holidays and it was late. We said our family didn't want to talk about relocation. They had so many people, dozens. They sat in a row and said, "We're not leaving today." Then more people came, so we called the police.
Forced demolition is a common practice inside China. Authorities sometimes decide to take back certain pieces of land in order to sell or develop them for more profitable projects. Residents often receive little to no compensation in exchange. Xie explained that after the police came, others who came along with them said the police were simply enforcing the law.
Then one of the people in front of the police started verbally insulting our whole family, saying that we have no sense of shame. The insults were extremely offensive.
Xue's wife was also detained by the police for a day. That's after she told them to stop insulting her family and asked them to leave. But the unwelcome guests returned the next day. That's when one of them punched Xue's father, hospitalizing him.
On the 8th, they came again to our home with dozens of people. I wasn't at home. When I came home, at the door, I witnessed my father falling to the ground. Only later, from our home surveillance, did I find out that they knocked him down.
Video taken in the home shows that after the father fell, he hit his head on the ground. The blow knocked him out. Xie says his father suffered a severe head injury. What's more, Xie explained that authorities also blocked hospitals from admitting his father. Currently, his father is receiving treatment at a small hospital in East China's Zhejiang province. Don Ma, NTD News.
Beijing is planning to kick private capital out of its media industry, and China's top economic planner has already drafted a proposal about it. Put simply, authorities plan to ban private capital from doing multiple things. One, they can't invest in news agencies. They also can't operate them. This includes print publications, broadcasting companies, and online news aggregation services. If this were to happen in the U.S., you'd see a scenario where all the media outlets were controlled by state-owned capital. For example, Rupert Murdoch wouldn't own the Wall Street Journal anymore. Back to China, Beijing has several other plans to restrict the power of private capital. For one, privately owned outlets can't cover news from foreign media, and Beijing also doesn't want them to live stream important events ranging from politics to military, the economy, sports, and culture. The purpose is to prevent private capital from swaying public opinion. So who will be impacted by the upcoming regulation? Most notably, some big media outlets and the big tech capital behind them. One example is the South China Morning Post. It's owned by Chinese e-commerce giant Alibaba. The company has been building its own media empire, investing in newspapers, online news services, and TV companies. A former top official in China's Journalists Association says the move agrees with a Marxist view of journalism. He says China's news industry is the party and the people's mouthpiece, and Beijing's planned action can't prevent private capital from swaying public opinion for the purpose of profit. Beijing says it's inviting comments from the public and is open to consultation until Thursday. The energy crisis continues in China. Beijing orders its top coal producers to boost output. China faces its worst power crunch in years, prompting rationing across the nation. The Chinese regime ordered 2 coal regions to increase production by more than 160 million tons. It'll also allow coal power plants to charge more for electricity. Imports are also on the agenda. They fell nearly 10% in the first 8 months, with coal inventories at major Chinese ports down about 20% from last year. And winter has arrived in some parts of northern China, upping the ante for authorities as people's lives are put at risk. The Central Intelligence Agency, or CIA, is launching a new China Mission Center to counter the Chinese Communist regime, a signal that the Biden administration is moving resources to address its top national security threat, Beijing.
In a statement on Thursday, CIA Director William Burns said that the new China Mission Center will address the global challenge posed by the People's Republic of China that cuts across all of the agency's mission areas. And he went on to say that it will further strengthen our collective work on the most important geopolitical threat we face in the 21st century, an increasingly adversarial Chinese government.
This formal announcement probably should have been made several years ago. They can create kind of a center to focus activity, all the mission planning, and on the intelligence community side of the house, and then coordinate with the other instruments of national power.
This comes as part of the CIA's restructuring plan to deal with key national security challenges. The CIA also announced it is creating a new position for a chief technology officer and a transnational and technology mission center.
It's a good idea to have a science technology mission focus center. You know, there are times that peer competitors, peer adversaries develop technologies in advance of us, and we want to make sure we are able to detect that, track that, understand that, and put the United States and our strategic partners in the most advantageous position so that in the end we prevail.
To become more competitive, the agency also plans to improve hiring practices by reducing application time.
Now we turn to Hong Kong. A statue to memorialize victims of the 1989 Tiananmen Square massacre is given a deadline of only a few days to be removed from a university campus in Hong Kong. Its Danish creator believes the real motive is to have the statue destroyed. This comes after authorities step up pressure on pro-democracy groups in Hong Kong. NDD's Eddie Atkin has the story.
The statue is called the Pillar of Shame. It has been in Hong Kong for 24 years in memory of student protesters who were killed in the 1989 Tiananmen Square massacre. Hong Kong University demands it be removed by October the 13th, giving it less than a week's notice. Its creator says the removal can't be done in a few days.
I think they will destroy it. This is the reason they do that. So the story behind all this is making excuse to destroy, because nobody come and get it up, and now we destroy it.
Gail Shiot lent the statue to the Hong Kong Alliance in support of patriotic democratic movements of China, and it ended up on the campus of the University of Hong Kong. The Alliance was the organizer of the annual Tiananmen Square massacre vigil in Hong Kong. Beijing has been working to silence talk of the 1989 massacre. In September, the alliance was forced to dissolve after Hong Kong police arrested 5 of the group's leaders.
Of course, this is a problem because if the alliance is disappearing, if the students are disappearing and can do nothing, then I really don't know what I shall do.
Hong Kong University has not given a reason for the removal request, but said in a statement that the exhibit in question belongs to an external organization which has publicly announced that it is in the process of disbanding. Gail Shiot says the removal order is an attack against the memory of the Tiananmen crackdown. He says the statue is very expensive and is still his property. If it is destroyed or damaged, he says he will contact his lawyer. Eddie Aitken, NTD News.
Voters in a Central European country have booted the Communist Party out of parliament. The Communist Party of Bohemia and Moravia, or KSCM, failed to retain enough seats to enter the parliament of the Czech Republic. The KSCM took just 3.6% of the vote, failing to make the 5% mark needed to retain seats in both the House and the Chamber of Deputies. It's the first time this has happened since the formation of the Czech Republic about 2 decades ago. The party's Soviet-backed predecessors had ruled the nation with an iron fist from 1948 until 1989, the year the Velvet Revolution ushered in democracy. In the 1950s, the party is known to have jailed tens of thousands of people in forced labor camps. That's on top of brutally repressing dissidents. Another apparent victim of China's debt diplomacy is fighting back. A new report says China's 2008 mining deal with the Democratic Republic of Congo is unconscionable. It could help Congo's bid to renegotiate the deal, which critics say has failed to deliver. NTD's Patrick Hayden reports.
Back in 2008, the Democratic Republic of Congo struck a big deal with China. China's state-owned firms would build hospitals and roads in return for revenues from copper and cobalt mines. 13 years on, critics say few of the promised benefits have materialized. Now a new report by a global anti-corruption body, seen by Reuters, calls the deal unconscionable. It urges Congo to cancel an amendment signed in secret in 2017, which sped up payments to Chinese investors. The report may be welcomed by President Felix Tsai. On a recent visit to a mining area, he told residents he was re-evaluating relations with Chinese investors.
We have noticed for some years that people come into our country with empty hands and pretend to be entrepreneurs and leave with billions in their pockets, but we remain poor.
Tsai's move marks a rare pushback by Congo. The full report will be published later this month by Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, which tracks money flows in oil and mining. Congo is the world's leading producer of cobalt, now a huge strategic importance as a key component in batteries. Patrick Hayden, NTD News.
China has introduced an import ban of cows from across the UK. This after UK authorities found an isolated case of the mad cow disease. NTD's Malcolm Hudson reports.
Chinese authorities have banned the import of all British beef from cows under the age of 2.5. That's in response to a case of mad cow disease in Somerset in September. The Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, or DEFRA, immediately restricted movements on the farm. The cow did not enter the food chain, and the Food Standards Agency has confirmed there is no risk to food safety. China had banned imports due to mad cow disease already in the 90s, only to lift its ban in 2018, but it has yet to begin buying British beef. Chief Veterinary Officer Christine Middlemiss says in a statement, "We have some of the highest levels of biosecurity in the world, which are supported by robust control systems. Our products are safe and should continue to be traded." DEFRA says they are working closely with Chinese authorities to understand their concerns and provide reassurances over the successful management of the case. Malcolm Hudson, NTD News, London.
And that's all for today's China in Focus. Thanks for watching and see you tomorrow.